Michael Bennett sank into the plush leather seat, feeling the cool softness envelop him as the faint scent of fresh leather and chilled champagne drifted through the first-class cabin of Prestige Airways. With practiced ease, he flipped open his laptop, the glow of the screen illuminating the confident yet thoughtful face of a 36-year-old CEO preparing the most crucial speech of his career. But before he could even type the first word, sharp footsteps halted abruptly beside him. Michael glanced upward, meeting the cold gaze and forced smile of the flight attendant. "Excuse me, sir, but there appears to be a mistake," she said politely, but tension pulsed beneath her careful words. "We need you to vacate this seat to accommodate one of our VIP passengers." Michael's chest tightened, a fleeting sting of familiarity, pulling him momentarily back to memories of his youth, being overlooked, underestimated, or worse. He glanced behind the attendant, catching the impatient stare of Victoria Kensington, an impeccably dressed woman tapping her manicured finger on a gleaming Cartier watch. She whispered something curtly to the attendant, then shifted her gaze toward Michael, cold disdain flickering behind her carefully composed expression. Drawing in a steadying breath, Michael felt old defiance stir within him. Those memories belonged to another time, another Michael. The kid who didn't fit others' image of success. But today, he was Michael Bennett, founder and CEO of Blue Sky Technologies, a billion-dollar enterprise dedicated to eradicating prejudice from corporate America. Today, unknown to anyone else aboard, he held the very future of Prestige Airways in his hands. "I'm sorry," Michael replied, voice even, his gaze unwavering, "but I don't believe there's any mistake here." A heavy silence gripped the cabin, passengers turning discreetly toward the unfolding scene, anticipation and tension crackling in the air. But no one, not even Michael himself, could foresee how this single, seemingly ordinary moment was about to turn everything upside down, not just for Prestige Airways, but for Michael's own life. The flight that would change everything had only just begun. Amanda's heels clicked sharply on the polished cabin floor as she leaned toward Michael, her voice firm, strained with forced politeness. "Sir, I understand your position, but Ms. Kensington always sits in 1A. We'd appreciate your cooperation." Michael, pulse quickening slightly beneath his steady exterior, quietly held up his boarding pass and platinum member card. "Respectfully," he said, calm but resolute, "I reserved this seat specifically. It suits my needs. I'm staying put." Nearby passengers subtly craned their necks, smartphones discreetly sliding from pockets, ready to capture a brewing storm. Amanda's eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of irritation betraying her practiced composure. From behind, Victoria Kensington exhaled loudly, theatrically adjusting her silk scarf. "This is absurd," she sighed, just loud enough for the audience around her. Amanda, clearly pressured, leaned closer. "Perhaps another seat?" "No," Michael cut in softly, firmly. "This is my seat. I'm not moving." Amanda's lips tightened. She hesitated, then turned sharply toward the galley. Michael exhaled, tension rippling through his shoulders. He resumed typing, fingers slightly trembling, only now noticing how silent the cabin had grown. Jacob Harrison, the senior cabin supervisor, strode briskly down the aisle, posture rigid, radiating authority. Leaning aggressively toward Michael, his voice carried an implicit threat. "Sir, let's not make this difficult. We have protocols here. VIP passengers have preferences, and we expect cooperation." Michael's heart raced, a cold chill coursing down his spine. He knew this tone. It wasn't about procedure, it was about power. Swallowing a surge of anger, he kept his voice steady, eyes locked fiercely onto Jacob's. "I've shown my boarding pass. I paid for this seat. This conversation is over." Whispers rippled outward, cameras flashed subtly, Jacob's jaw muscles twitched, fury momentarily fracturing his careful facade. "Have it your way," he muttered bitterly, signaling toward the cockpit. Seconds later, heavy footsteps echoed through the cabin. Captain Morgan Hartwell emerged, expression severe, shoulders squared. Passengers shifted nervously, sensing the confrontation spiraling dangerously out of control. "Mr. Bennett," Captain Hartwell announced coldly, voice commanding attention, "my crew has informed me you're causing a disruption. For everyone's comfort, I must ask you to vacate the seat immediately." Michael's eyes widened in disbelief. "Are you removing me because I refuse to yield the seat I booked and paid for?" The captain stiffened visibly. Victoria loudly tapped her foot, punctuating the uncomfortable silence. Hartwell's voice lowered, dangerously tense. "If you continue to resist, I'll have security escort you off." Michael slowly pulled out his smartphone, activating his camera. "For my own protection," he declared evenly, eyes never leaving Hartwell's face. "I'm documenting this conversation." Hartwell's expression darkened instantly. He lunged forward impulsively, hand reaching to seize the device. "You can't film." Michael swiftly recoiled, voice sharp and authoritative. "Federal regulations allow recording if crew duties aren't obstructed. You just crossed a line, Captain." Gasps broke across the cabin. Several passengers openly filmed the explosive standoff. Hartwell retreated a step, face reddening in frustration. Without further words, he waved furiously toward the plane's entry. Moments later, two imposing security officers marched onto the aircraft, their uniforms crisp, eyes hidden behind mirrored sunglasses. Michael, heart pounding furiously beneath his calm exterior, stood up with dignity. As the officers approached, Amanda discreetly accepted a folded stack of cash from Victoria, caught clearly by passengers' phones. Michael straightened, facing the officers squarely. "Tell me exactly which policy I violated." The officers exchanged uncomfortable glances, hesitating. "Sir, we were told you were disruptive," one finally responded, voice uncertain. Michael gathered his belongings, dignity intact despite burning humiliation. Walking slowly down the aisle, whispers surrounded him, some judgmental, others deeply sympathetic. As he exited, Michael felt his phone vibrate urgently. A text from Sophia, the passenger across the aisle who'd quietly recorded everything. The message was clear: "I have proof. You won't believe what else I captured." Michael's heart surged with determination. The confrontation was over, but the real battle had just begun. Standing in the empty terminal, Michael took a deep breath, shoulders heavy with frustration, anger simmering beneath his composed facade. He glanced down at Sophia's urgent text again, its stark words glowing on his screen. Footsteps echoed sharply, startling him from his thoughts. Sophia approached swiftly, her chest rising rapidly as she held up her phone, eyes wide with intensity. "You need to see this," she urged, handing Michael her device. He hesitated briefly before pressing play, eyes glued to the small screen. The footage was crystal clear, each humiliating detail vividly documented. The confrontation, the bribe, Amanda slipping Victoria's money discreetly into her pocket. Michael's jaw tightened, bitterness replaced by a sharp surge of hope. Finally, undeniable evidence. But Sophia interrupted his rising sense of relief, her voice dropping lower, urgency etched into every word. "Wait, there's more. Watch closely." Michael focused harder as Sophia replayed the video in slow motion. At first, nothing seemed unusual, but then, in the corner of the screen, he spotted Jacob discreetly whispering to Captain Hartwell moments before security was summoned. Michael leaned in, heart pounding. "What are they saying?" he asked tensely. "It's hard to hear," Sophia admitted, "but watch their body language closely." Michael's eyes narrowed as he observed the subtle exchange. Hartwell hesitated at first, shaking his head, visibly uncomfortable. Jacob leaned in closer, eyes intense, his lips forming clear words. "Just do it. The deal depends on it." Michael's pulse quickened. "Deal? What deal?" Sophia glanced around anxiously, voice nearly a whisper. "Michael, I ran a quick search on Jacob Harrison. He's related to Victoria Kensington. She's his aunt. Prestige Airways recently approved a massive merger involving Kensington's company. If word gets out about their corruption, then the merger collapses," Michael finished, realization dawning sharply. He stood frozen, mind racing through possibilities and dangers. This wasn't just personal bias, it was corporate sabotage masked behind prejudice. They had removed him deliberately, seeing him merely as an obstacle. Michael exhaled sharply, eyes blazing with renewed purpose. He straightened, determination washing away his earlier doubts. "Send me everything, Sophia. Every frame, every second. The airline thinks this ends with me off their plane. They have no idea." As the footage began uploading, Michael dialed his attorney, voice resolute, heart thundering in his chest. This fight wasn't over, it was only just beginning. Michael paced swiftly through the sleek glass corridors of Prestige Airways headquarters, footsteps echoing sharply against polished marble floors. He had waited years for an opportunity like this, yet his pulse quickened anxiously, each heartbeat resonating with the heavy stakes at hand. Beside him, his attorney, Rachel Evans, matched his stride, heels clicking resolutely as they approached the executive conference room. Inside, the atmosphere was electric, charged with tension. Prestige CEO Robert Lancaster stood rigidly near the conference table, his face drained of color beneath fluorescent lights. Executives whispered nervously, stealing furtive glances at Michael's entry. Robert cleared his throat, forcing a brittle smile. "Mr. Bennett, thank you for coming," he said stiffly. "We deeply regret what occurred. Prestige Airways is prepared to cooperate fully." Michael's gaze sharpened, scanning the anxious faces before landing decisively on Robert. "Your cooperation isn't optional anymore. There's blatant corruption inside your company, and I have undeniable evidence." The room grew instantly still. Before Michael could continue, the heavy oak doors swung open abruptly. Jacob Harrison strode confidently inside, flanked by two imposing attorneys. His eyes glinted coldly, defiance radiating from his carefully composed demeanor. "Actually, Mr. Bennett," Jacob declared smoothly, "you're mistaken. The recording you've obtained violates company confidentiality policies. Proceed, and you'll face immediate litigation." Robert's eyes flickered uncertainly between Michael and Jacob, panic rippling visibly beneath his composed exterior. Michael's throat tightened momentarily. Jacob's threat wasn't empty. Litigation meant months, perhaps years, of exhausting legal battles, damaging his company's reputation and risking Blue Sky's future. Sensing Michael's hesitation, Jacob pressed forward, voice dripping with calculated menace. "Walk away quietly, Mr. Bennett. Your career can't withstand this fight." Michael's fists clenched tightly, anger simmering beneath his calm facade. Memories flashed vividly. Childhood humiliations, quiet indignities suffered silently, each reinforcing his resolve. But beneath anger lurked doubt. Was justice truly worth jeopardizing everything he'd built? "Michael," Rachel whispered urgently, reading his turmoil, "we can settle privately, avoid legal disaster." The executives exchanged cautious glances, sensing Michael might retreat. Jacob's lips curled triumphantly, victory within his grasp. Then, Michael's phone vibrated urgently in his pocket, startling him. He quickly glanced downward, heart hammering, as he read Sophia's latest text, a single powerful sentence. "I found Hartwell. He's ready to talk publicly." Michael's breath steadied instantly, clarity cutting sharply through his doubts. His eyes rose fiercely, locking onto Jacob with renewed determination. "You made a mistake assuming silence could be bought," Michael declared sharply, his voice commanding authority. "Captain Hartwell just came forward. He confessed your arrangement, Jacob. It's over." Jacob's face drained of color, bravado shattering instantly. Executives gasped audibly, realization cascading like a wave across the table. Robert stared open-mouthed, clearly stunned by the revelation. Michael leaned forward slowly, his voice steady but filled with conviction. "You underestimated me because you couldn't see beyond your prejudice. Now you'll learn the consequences of your choices." As Jacob's attorneys began frantically whispering, Michael straightened proudly. The room's dynamic had shifted completely. Now everyone understood the truth. Michael Bennett wasn't just fighting for himself anymore, he was fighting for every person ever forced into silence. The boardroom had erupted into chaotic whispers, nervous executives exchanging frantic glances. Jacob Harrison stood paralyzed, his carefully crafted image crumbling, panic etched across his once confident face. Robert Lancaster sank slowly into his leather chair, utterly speechless, visibly shaken by Hartwell's betrayal. But just as Michael prepared to leave, satisfied the truth had finally come to light, the massive oak doors swung open dramatically once again. Victoria Kensington strode boldly into the room, her posture defiant, head held high. The room instantly quieted, all eyes locked onto her commanding presence. "I believe there's something everyone should see," Victoria announced, voice clear and sharp, cutting through the tension effortlessly. Without hesitation, she handed a slim tablet to Robert, who stared at the screen, his expression darkening with disbelief. Michael's pulse quickened. He hadn't anticipated another layer of intrigue. "What's going on here?" Michael demanded, his voice betraying a flicker of uncertainty. Robert slowly stood, turning the tablet toward Michael. On the screen played a security video, crisp, unmistakable footage showing Michael discreetly accepting an envelope from a stranger earlier that same morning. Michael's heart stopped cold. The implication was horrifyingly clear: he was being framed. "This morning, Mr. Bennett received a substantial cash bribe," Victoria asserted coolly, eyes glittering dangerously. "He staged this incident deliberately. Prestige Airways is the victim of sabotage, not discrimination." A collective gasp echoed through the boardroom. Jacob regained his composure, eyes gleaming maliciously, realizing the tables had once again turned. Robert's voice trembled, a mixture of shock and betrayal. "Michael, is this true?" Michael's throat tightened painfully, blood roaring in his ears. Panic surged momentarily. This false accusation was devastatingly convincing. His reputation hung precariously by a thread, each second of silence damning him further. The room felt stifling, accusations silently piercing him like invisible arrows. Then, as Michael's mind raced for answers, Rachel Evans swiftly stepped forward, grabbing the tablet decisively, her eyes narrowing in suspicion. She scrutinized the video closely, then turned sharply toward Victoria. "You almost pulled this off," Rachel said icily, her voice dripping contempt. "But you forgot one detail: the timestamp. This video was altered. Look closely. It's from last week, not today." The executives murmured rapidly, confusion and relief washing over their faces. Victoria faltered visibly, color draining from her cheeks as her lie unraveled. Michael released a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding, relief flooding through him like a tidal wave. "This was your backup plan?" Michael asked Victoria quietly, regaining his composure. "Frame me, discredit my testimony, and protect your merger at any cost." Victoria, jaw clenched in defeat, said nothing. Robert stared at her in stunned disbelief, realization dawning bitterly. Prestige had nearly lost everything due to internal corruption masked by prejudice. Michael turned calmly toward Robert, voice steady yet powerful. "Your problem runs deeper than one incident. This culture enabled corruption and discrimination. Now's your chance. Root it out completely, or watch your company collapse under its own weight." Silence filled the room once more, heavy with the gravity of Michael's words. Prestige Airways now stood at a crossroads: transform or be destroyed from within. Within hours, news of Prestige Airways' dramatic scandal dominated headlines nationwide. Social media exploded with passionate commentary, each post and video racking up millions of views. Clips of Michael's dignified resistance, the bribery, and Victoria's failed attempt at sabotage became symbols of corporate corruption and prejudice exposed. Facing overwhelming public outrage, Prestige CEO Robert Lancaster swiftly called an emergency press conference, his voice heavy but resolute as he stood before a crowd of flashing cameras and skeptical reporters. "Today," Robert began firmly, eyes sincere, "Prestige Airways must acknowledge a shameful reality. We failed Michael Bennett profoundly, not only as a passenger but as a human being. Our complacency enabled prejudice and corruption within our ranks. Effective immediately, every individual involved in this incident, Jacob Harrison, Amanda Brooks, Captain Hartwell, and Ms. Kensington, is terminated. We commit fully to restoring trust and integrity in our airline." But Robert's statement wasn't merely symbolic. Michael Bennett, determined to seize this pivotal moment, had already leveraged his influence. Prestige Airways announced an unprecedented company-wide grounding lasting 24 hours, during which every employee, from pilots to gate agents, underwent mandatory anti-bias and ethics training, delivered directly by Michael's Blue Sky Technologies team. The impact was immediate and profound. Airports nationwide broadcast images of Prestige employees crowded into terminals and conference rooms, deeply engaged in intensive training sessions. Michael personally led several workshops, his voice clear and calm, sharing his own experiences candidly, inspiring genuine reflection and powerful dialogue among even the most skeptical employees. Online, millions watched live-streamed sessions, captivated by Michael's sincerity and the transformative honesty of those participating. Overnight, Michael Bennett emerged not merely as a victim, but as a powerful voice driving meaningful cultural change. Days later, Prestige Airways initiated structural reforms unprecedented in aviation. Policies explicitly forbade passenger favoritism, strengthened whistleblower protections, and mandated ongoing diversity and inclusion training. Independent auditors verified compliance rigorously, ensuring these reforms transcended mere public relations gestures, penetrating deeply into the company's core. Outside Prestige's corporate walls, those directly involved faced harsh realities. Jacob Harrison, now publicly disgraced, struggled to find even entry-level employment, repeatedly rejected due to his newfound notoriety. Amanda Brooks confronted painful truths about her complicity, unable to shake the haunting shame of her actions. Victoria Kensington, once powerful and respected, found herself socially isolated, her personal and professional reputation irrevocably damaged. Yet, amid punishment and public condemnation, Michael offered something extraordinary: a chance for redemption. Through his newly established Rise Above Foundation, Michael launched a groundbreaking initiative, a rehabilitation program specifically tailored for individuals implicated in discriminatory or unethical behavior. The program required deep personal accountability, intensive training, and sincere commitment to meaningful change. Amanda Brooks was among the first applicants. In emotional group sessions, she acknowledged the fear and weakness underlying her silence, resolving to never again sacrifice integrity for financial comfort. Jacob Harrison, initially resistant, eventually broke down, confronting his inherited prejudices openly, vowing to rebuild his life on genuine humility rather than arrogance. Captain Hartwell, stripped of flying privileges, embraced a new role teaching pilots and crew about ethical leadership, determined to atone for his betrayal. Within months, Prestige Airways transformed dramatically. Customer satisfaction ratings surged, passengers frequently remarking on the newfound warmth, fairness, and authenticity they experienced aboard Prestige flights. Michael cautiously reinstated Blue Sky's partnership and investment, satisfied by the airline's tangible progress. One afternoon, standing beside Robert Lancaster on the tarmac, Michael watched a Prestige jet lift gracefully into the sky. Robert exhaled slowly, turning to Michael with sincere gratitude. "You showed us the hardest truths we needed to face," Robert admitted humbly. Michael nodded thoughtfully, eyes fixed on the jet's ascending form. The true test of any organization isn't avoiding mistakes, it's whether they possess the courage to confront them and truly change. As the plane disappeared into the clouds, both men understood clearly: real justice wasn't mere punishment. It was the courage to redeem mistakes, rebuild from failure, and become better, one difficult step at a time. A year later, Michael Bennett stood on a brightly lit stage at the prestigious National Leadership Summit, calmly gazing out at hundreds of eager faces. He felt the familiar, gentle hum of adrenaline. But this moment felt profoundly different. He wasn't speaking merely as a successful CEO, but as someone who had faced injustice head-on, confronting prejudice not with bitterness, but with grace and determined purpose. "My journey with Prestige Airways taught me something essential about humanity," Michael began, his voice steady and reflective. "We often believe injustice thrives simply because people are evil or malicious. But the truth is, prejudice often endures quietly, sustained by silence, complicity, and the choices we fail to challenge." Behind him, images of Prestige Airways' transformation flashed onto a large screen. Crews engaged in deep conversations during training, passengers of diverse backgrounds warmly embraced by smiling flight attendants, and former offenders bravely confronting their biases in rehabilitation workshops. These scenes captured a company reborn, not from punitive destruction, but from accountability, forgiveness, and collective redemption. In the aftermath, Michael continued thoughtfully, "I learned justice isn't merely about punishment. True justice demands we see mistakes as opportunities, not only for correction, but genuine growth. Each individual involved, Amanda, Jacob, even Captain Hartwell, discovered the harsh consequences of prejudice firsthand. But instead of abandoning them, we provided paths to redemption, demanding accountability, but also allowing for change. In the audience, Amanda Brooks quietly wiped tears away, nodding slowly. Beside her, Jacob Harrison sat with a softened expression, humbled by his public journey of self-discovery. Nearby, Captain Hartwell listened attentively, embracing his newfound purpose of teaching integrity to future pilots. Even Victoria Kensington watched from home, reflective, transformed, quietly committed to atoning for her past arrogance through active community service. Michael paused, taking a slow breath, meeting the eyes of each attendee directly. This experience also taught me the power of standing firm, even when outnumbered, even when voices threaten to drown us out. Our true character isn't revealed in moments of ease or privilege, but in those painful instances when injustice stares us down, daring us to be silent. The room erupted into heartfelt applause, listeners rising spontaneously, moved profoundly by Michael's sincerity. As Michael stepped back from the podium, Robert Lancaster joined him on stage, shaking his hand warmly. Two men whose relationship began as adversaries, now standing as partners, united by shared purpose. After the event, Sophia approached Michael, smiling warmly. "You changed more than an airline," she said quietly. "You changed countless lives, including mine." Michael returned her smile thoughtfully. "No," he replied softly, "we changed them, together. Because change is never just one voice, it's every person who refuses to stay silent." Later, alone by the large windows overlooking the city lights, Michael reflected deeply on everything that had unfolded since that fateful day. The ultimate lesson wasn't about the past or even about corporate justice. It was profoundly personal, universal in its simplicity, yet powerful enough to shift entire worlds. Life isn't defined by the injustices we endure, but by how courageously we respond to them. Real power isn't wealth, titles, or status. It's choosing compassion, humility, and resilience, even when faced with those who choose differently. Michael had confronted injustice and prejudice head-on, and in doing so had helped transform not only an airline, but countless hearts. He knew now, clearer than ever, that each act of courage, however small, held within it the infinite power to inspire change. If you enjoyed this powerful journey aboard Prestige Airways, where Michael Bennett's brave stand transformed a moment of injustice into a movement for lasting change, then buckle up, because there's so much more ahead. Hit that subscribe button right now for the X Daily Stories channel, your destination for gripping tales that challenge perceptions, inspire courage, and deliver unforgettable lessons. We're bringing you fresh cinematic stories every day, packed with suspense, drama, and powerful insights you'll carry with you long after the story ends.